What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Grind podcast, where we explore the daily grind of B2B marketing from inside the trenches, talking about what's working, what's not, and why it all matters. I'm Gary, joined once again by my brother Mac. Howdy do, my friend?
Me do very well, especially since I got some coffee in me and ready to get into this week's topic.
Yeah, super stoked about this week. We are talking about the dreaded, the feared pipeline and how we generate it. But before we get into the topic, we got to get into the coffee. This is a marketing show fueled by caffeine, the old tagline,
No.
rearing its ugly head. What are you drinking?
I just made a quick trip out to Starbucks. My go-to there is their salted caramel cold brew. Just hits the spot every time. That little foam on top seeps really nicely into the coffee, and it's quite the treat. So that's what I'm doing here today, and I'm gonna enjoy it. How about you?
I think you got to give our listeners here a little bit of your backstory connection to the Bucks.
Yeah, well, I used to work there. Couple different stores. Became a coffee master at one point. It kind of like fueled my foray into marketing, because it wasn't that long after I was leaving Starbucks that I started a coffee blog and got really into storytelling around coffee. And this is back when Tumblr was a thing, so my blog lived on Tumblr, and just sort of snowballed into my first marketing job at a startup agency, and I haven't looked back since. So Starbucks was a big influence in, well, not only my marketing career, but really my like customer focused career, because I took that very seriously as it relates to customer service and providing a good service. And that, I think that just kind of translates into what I've been doing the last, 6 to 10 years is marketing, but SaaS focused marketing, software service marketing, and really diving into like customer needs and, providing a good experience overall. So yeah,
Yeah,
Starbucks holds a special place in my heart for sure.
you love a good backstory. It's just you gotta enrich with the details, and those are some good details. And even if you had to reach for the themes a little bit and connect them to the present, I think you did a great job there. I respect it.
Yeah, I don't think about that too often. When I go into a Starbucks, it's one and done. I get my drink and
Yeah,
I leave. But I do think about that. I think like, oh man, like in today's day and age, Starbucks, like I don't know if I'd be able to fit into the drive-through component and like all the stuff they're doing over there nowadays. Like my
yeah.
when I worked there, it was very simple. It's very, one-to-one, customer focused.
Oh yeah, the mobile
Yeah.
order station is like
Well, yeah, it
it's the
removes
most
all of that.
impersonal thing ever. Like
Yeah.
people are just running up and grabbing stuff, and you're like, "Are you Dave? I don't know."
Yeah, you're just like, all right, well, it's not my problem right now. Until it
Right?
becomes your problem when the real Dave comes back and says, "Hey, where's my drink?" And you're like, "Got you, Dave. I got you. We'll make it for you." So yeah, the mobile ordering thing, I luckily was not a part of that. Yeah, today's Starbucks is just, I don't think it's something that I would be able to ever uh, be a part of. It's just too crazy. I like the
Yeah,
one-on-one interactions. I like the personal relationships.
yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right,
Well, I
your
got
side, my friend.
I got a delicious cold brew once again. This is from my pals at Atlas Coffee. This month's featured country is Uganda. So
Oh,
yeah, it's just an extra dark roast. Let's give it a whirl. Cheers.
oh, cheers.
Okay. So this coffee um, sways a little bit from my kind of strike zone down the middle, where I'm usually in the kind of like fudgy brownie batter, Nestle Crunch. I'm just like remembering some of the ridiculous things I've said over the past few episodes. This is pretty bitter actually. Bittersweet dark chocolate, a little bit of like lemon rind, citrus kind of coming through to balance that out. But there's acidity in this one. It's not over the top, but if it's one of the more kind of like um, it's just in your face bitterness coffees that I've had from these guys. Still good. It's gonna keep me on my toes throughout this episode, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I always appreciate your in-depth analysis on your coffee. I wish I could say the same about mine. Um, the reason people go to Starbucks is for consistency. This drink in particular, it's salty, it's sweet, it's the perfect balance. If that is your game, and it's mine, so I couldn't stray.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. I am a big fan of the shaken espresso series from Starbucks, so that's usually my drink of choice: shaken espresso.
All right, go big or go home.
That's right. That's right. And I add espresso. I'm just like just dosing myself up
Yeah,
with
four
caffeine.
shots,
All
five
right.
shots.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we got our coffee. Let's jump into the marketing side of things here. Um, and I was actually thinking about this as you were talking about Starbucks, just like the B2C marketing experience and just how uh, I don't want to call it transactional because it's not. It's experiential. There's nuance, layered complexity to the B2C transaction and buying experience, but um, it's short. It's simple. It's neat. We talked about this in the last episode. Like the marketing funnel is just like it's simplistic. When you pivot that over to like high LTV B2B software sales, it's all about complexity. Like there's so many touch points, there's so many decision makers, there's conversations and lots of touch points along that equation. On B2C, you're thinking acquisition, you're thinking conversion. Those things happen quickly. In B2B, you're thinking pipeline, right? So
Mm-hmm.
break down pipeline for anyone that like any newer marketers that haven't really had to think in those terms, and then just drive me into where you want to go here about like how do you think about impacting pipeline as a marketer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way to describe it is, the pipeline is are the qualified leads that are brought into the sales cycle that become opportunities that then become customers. And so, when you think about from a B2B standpoint, forecasting quarters and annual growth, you want to achieve a certain dollar number in pipeline attributed to sales and marketing activity. I think because sales drives a lot of that, right? Like as marketers, like we can bring the horse to water, but can you get them to drink? That's
Mm-hmm.
in our minds, sales jobs. To be able to nurture and to bring them to that opportunity standpoint, get the demo in, right? And so, from a B2B standpoint, marketing has to do whatever we can and try to, I guess, like from like a immature standpoint, it's what can we do to bring in as many people in as possible, and then have sales sort of validate, who's qualified, who's not. But the games change a little bit because channels get noisy and everything like that. So marketing has to be a little bit smarter about how they're approaching driving qualified leads into the pipeline. In which case, then we can properly set expectations from a sales and marketing, really a revenue standpoint of what we think we're going to be bringing in this quarter, next quarter, annually. And so that's really kind of the long and short of it. And it's as a marketer, you mentioned this when you introed the episode, was like this the dreaded pipeline, and it and it's because like it can get fishy. It can
Yeah.
get really fishy. Like who's in charge of that? Like who takes ownership of these things? And at the end of the day, like where does marketing really fit into all that? If this is sales job to close these deals, why is marketing kind of getting some of, like, I don't say pushback or anything like that, but why is marketing getting tapped on the shoulder and saying, hey, like, we need your help? And it's really because marketing influences a lot of that pipeline. We're the ones doing the activity that's bringing in the inbound leads, and then giving them to sales for them to be able to do that outbound, outreach, nurturing, emails, phone calls, the typical gamut, to try to warm up these leads to a point where they're willing to, take their time, sit down for a demo, understand, what our solution does that solves their problems.
Hmm.
There's a whole timeline in this thing. But as a marketer, you kind of sort of think like, hey, I did my activity. Now this is your job. And I think there's a little misalignment with um, that mentality, and that's why it hits home for me, because this is something that I'm dealing with currently, where marketing has a really strong position to influence a stronger sales alignment, has the opportunity to better enable sales to, you know uh, move the deal, accelerate the deal through their stages a little bit faster. and
Hmm.
um, and yeah, it's just something that it's so top of mind for me right now, as I'm like establishing what does this look like within my organization, because it didn't exist before. That it was
Right.
like, I'm sure that there's a lot of marketers out there in like early stage startups and in companies that don't have this operation, um, solidified, that it's like, hey, maybe we can talk through this a little bit, and identify some opportunities to kind of help establish that better sales marketing alignment.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying, and from what I've observed, kind of from the agency side, is the existential crisis that an in-house marketer in a sales-led organization might have is the kind of like bucketing or like siloing of marketing, like segregated from sales, and the roles and expectations of both of those things, like not talking back and forth to each other in a productive way, so that there just becomes questions, there becomes just confusion over like who's handling what in what stage, in what kind of like part of the pipeline. So um to me, like, it all comes back to definition, right? There's too many things in that process, like it's too complex. And when we talk pipeline, we're talking stages. And so when you break it down by stage too, there's just so many things to define. So like, what do you define? How do you define those things? You're newer in your organization, but marketing is a newer function, so you're stepping into not a blank slate, but like somewhat of a like nascent uh program that you have influence in shaping. What things have you looked to define? What conversations are you starting to have with your sales team to help create that like shared expectation of who's doing what and when and how?
Yeah, I mean, the conversation really started. I mean, our team's so small, so it's myself and one other marketer, and then our sales team is three people, and so we have
Okay.
one SDR that is doing all the outreach, and she has, her own list of cold outreach prospects to go after. But um, she like we she's in charge of basically taking all of the leads lists and the registration lists that we do from our events, webinars, and things like that, and is in charge of putting together the sequences for those, the outbound sequences. And um, and when I first started it, I thought there was a process to that. I thought that there was, um, maybe a checklist of sorts that was like, all right, when this activity is done, this is where it goes. This is, what we provide, and it just kind of goes off to sales. Um, and then in talking to that SDR, it was very clear that she was begging for marketing to be
Mm.
more proactive and interactive with her and her outreach, where it was like, I think what made her job easier was that we were really planning activity so far in advance that we would be very communicative of, here's what we're doing next month, and by the day, so that you can
Yeah.
start setting up your sequences. Um, we didn't get to this point where we were able to kind of sit down and like look at the language and how she was approaching those things. I just, at that point, it was like, hey, we just needed to get this stuff, you know, you know, dialed in and or buttoned up. So we
Yeah.
had sort of a good schedule in place. But I imagine we will get to this place where we can kind of sit down and look at like how are we sort of approaching the outreach. But it really was like just setting her up for success. I think the
Hmm.
pain point on the sales side was, well, we're not getting this information soon enough. We're not getting the context we need to be able
Yeah.
to provide the right outreach. And that was something that I think was really critical, because in the platform that we sell, we're collecting intel and data based on people's reactions and their responses to our outbound emails,
Hmm.
that we can then provide that to the SDRs and say, hey, like this person answered this question this way, and we were kind of then delivering these lists, not just with first name, last name, email, but it's like, here's the org name, here's how they answered a certain question, giving us a little bit more of a pulse on, are they ready to have a deeper conversation about their pain points or their problems. And so that was something that I was really focused on, or have been focused on, moving forward, is being able to be a better partner with the sales team and to continue that relationship, continue the conversation. What else can we do to help you guys succeed? And that goes into enablement too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely, coming into a new organization that didn't have that before. Or, I mean, I think maybe it was there, it just was very bare bones. And
Right.
then just kind of looking at the process and being like, all right, like it sounds like the sales team needs a little bit more from marketing to be able to do their jobs, better. And even thinking about new ideas that we can kind of, deploy to help them get a better understanding of the people in the pipeline, so they can contextually reach out better. I
Hmm.
think that was like the
Hmm.
biggest thing for me, was like, it's all about context. You can't just send the same email, make the same phone call to everybody. Like, there's certain people that, if we got good intel on them, we can tailor that approach a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the good things about the collaboration between sales and marketing is there is a shared language, and that language is data. So when we think about data from a marketing and sales context, we think about a continuum, and that continuum can layer on top of the pipeline, and you can see like how contacts might be flowing through that and accelerating or decelerating through that process through the data that you're collecting. And if you guys are looking at the same data, if marketing can surface the right data to sales, and then sales can then push data points back into that same platform, and that goes back and forth, then what you're talking about are two things. One, like you just said, context, so key on the sales side for understanding where someone's at and why. And then data quality, knowing that this person actually raised their hand at this time, in this way, in this channel, that you can then map to a level of intent, or a scenario, a buying scenario that might be specific to them, that would dictate specifics and personalization in outreach and follow up. So, yeah, I think that's super key. And then I think the things that kind of connect on the back end of that, I'm curious about how you guys are thinking about this now. It's probably in the early stages and will evolve, but like goal setting and KPIs on the back end of that, like how are you guys approaching like these shared goals versus stuff that is like marketing specific, and because this is something that like anybody wants. They want control over the things they can control, right? And so
Hmm.
you kind of started this is like, hey, we can only do so much, and like sales, you gotta close this thing. So I don't want to be held accountable to like close deals, but you kind of have to. So like, how are you guys talking about that internally?
Yeah. So I mean, luckily, like we're not on the hook for the close deal side of things. We're definitely on the hook for the pipeline numbers.
Yeah.
So based on dollar amount and looking at how qualified they are and what their organization looks like, because our pricing is all based off of like number of members and everything. So we're able to sort of uh, predict what we feel what this particular prospect might be from a monthly recurring revenue to an annual recurring revenue standpoint. And so for us, our organization is so hyper focused on webinars and events that we're putting we're basically goal setting based on webinar registrants, um, demos booked at certain events. Those are really the primary ones. And there's a whole lot that we can unlock, but right now it's like that's the ship that's moving, and you kind of need to
Hmm.
keep that ship moving. Um, and so that's really kind of has been our focus. And we've been doing some ABM stuff on LinkedIn, trying to experiment a lot with with paid ads, but our budget's small. Resources are limited, and so we've been really trying to take that ABM approach as well, where we're taking our target account lists, we're pumping that into LinkedIn, and we're doing some very targeted LinkedIn ads as well to try to bring in some qualified pipeline. Doesn't always hit, it's a constant experimentation, and sometimes that's the way it goes. With a small company, with a small startup, it's you try things, doesn't work, iterate, move fast, try it again.
Hmm.
Um, while still keeping intact the the tried and true elements that has been driving business growth up to this point. But we're at a point where it's like, that stuff only goes so far, and you really need to kind of branch out a little bit. And so, what are those new KPIs? Um, for us, it's always going to be, I think, like not always going to be, but I think for now, it's going to be like, who booked a demo from a LinkedIn ad, or how many registrants do we bring in from this specific webinar, and how many of those net new people can we then convert into an opportunity. Um,
Hmm.
so that's been our focus for the last few months. Yeah, in this specific case. Um,
So
yeah.
you're are you as marketing being held accountable to like the opportunity rate, like the rate that leads are being converted to opportunities, or are you guys kind of stopping just shy of that and more focused on like the qualified lead, the demo KPI, or are you guys kind of like branching over into, well, if they're qualified and we got them in the pipeline, then that should have an impact on like percentage convert to opportunity. Is that happening just yet, or is that something you think that might be on the horizon?
No, I mean you nailed it. It's exactly what we're being measured on. Is that like qualified lead being? What's the likelihood of that being converted into an opportunity?
Yeah,
Because at that point, then it becomes a part of the SDR's responsibility to make sure that that happens, or to do their job to make sure that that
that's the
happens into a demo
collaboration.
booked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't do the research and conduct a personalized demo that hits on the pain points of that, cohort of your target audience, as a salesperson, you're failing at your job. So you could throw them as many qualified leads as you can. You're not going to impact that opportunity conversion rate, so to speak, because of that salesperson's inability to do their job to the level they need to. So that's really the shared goal. It sounds like the shared responsibility where you kind of touched on this early on was like communication. Like you have to be talking.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, I think
right?
like after any engagement, it's like, okay, here's the list. Here's all the information I can give you. Let's see how it goes, and then in a couple days, however long it takes, sometimes longer, it's checking back in and having like these regular check-ins of, okay, like how did we, what was the quality of the list that we gave to you, from this event last week. Okay, like, and we evaluate from there.
Mm-hmm.
And that just helps us kind of gauge from a marketing standpoint, like, was this a good topic? Was this do we need to switch things up? Was our call to action not strong enough? Or was it so good? Like, I think the first webinar that I ran back in January had like the highest registrant numbers that they had ever had. And but a lot of us are like, timely topic,
Right.
winning back lapsed members, at the beginning of the year. That's what a lot of people are thinking about.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day too, it's, what was our outreach strategy after that? Like, what did we do differently?
Yeah.
And we've improved on that since then, because that was, again, I mentioned that's my first one. Like, we didn't have like a follow up process on the marketing side. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
here's the list, sales, have fun. Um, and it was only like that for me, anyways, because it was like, whoa, now we got to think to the next one. Like, we got the next one coming up in 2 weeks. We got to get prepped for that. And then as time went on, it was very clear. It was like, all right, we're not equipping sales in the right way. We're just kind of doing what we did before, and I don't want to. That's not what I want to do. Just kind of take the torch and just keep moving with it the same way that we did before. Um,
Yeah.
so we had to like think about like how do you change that, especially from an enablement side too. Like, what resources can we drum up? What new content can we create? Case studies, obviously huge, especially
Mm-hmm.
from a industry or vertical perspective, that we can deliver to not only the SDR but the AE that's performing the demo and doing that additional follow up, post demo. Um, so it just became a little bit more collaborative from a marketing sales side, uh, to think about how can we better support. And I think that's kind of a good way to look at marketing, in this capacity, is as a support department.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm curious when we talk about communication, collaboration. I love to get tactical. I want to know like what platforms are you conducting that back and forth communication in? Is it unstructured in Slack? Is there some spreadsheet where you guys are tracking stuff? Is it happening directly in the CRM? Like break down the tool set and like where all this activity is happening and taking place.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot on Slack. Um, we're in Salesforce, and we do notate, where inbound came from, and or where opportunities are coming from. I dig in there just proactively. It's not. I think it needs to be a better practice for maybe report generation on a regular basis, so that there's a clear view into how the pipeline is performing. Um, Otherwise, it's just it's more of my own curiosity. And so it's, we have regular, meetings in the mornings, a go to market check in of how's it going? What do you need? How's this particular outreach sequence going? Anything you need from me there? Um, so it is, it's scrappy, for sure. It's definitely not a great set in stone, process, but you got to start somewhere. So Yeah, a lot of it's Slack, a lot of it is just Zoom calls, and then a lot of it is just like if you know your way around Salesforce, you just jump in and just check things out and build your own reports at times.
Yeah. It sounds like you have the source of truth, which is Salesforce. And as you grow, as the marketing team goes from a couple to five to, eight, and the sales team goes from three to five to 10 to 20, like ultimately it all needs to go in that source of truth because too much would get lost otherwise in unstructured formats. So it sounds like you at least have like the foundation, and it's just a matter of like building the muscle and like establishing the discipline across departments to like do what each needs to do to like maintain data quality in that central repository. And that's where the insights happen. Like that's how it comes back around so that like how to follow up and how certain things played out over the course of not just like the week after you ran a specific campaign, but 3 months once the pipeline has had time to like fully shake out. You can see how that marketing impact or content impacted deal flow. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so you
yeah,
guys are in a good place.
I mean that's where like an organization like ours needs to be better. Like we do have like the foundational attribution in place, but it's not super automated. It still requires some manual input on, all right, this was an inbound from a webinar or from an in-person conference, but like what conference was
Yeah.
that from? What webinar was that from? That'd be great to know, to get a
Mm,
little bit more detail to see
yeah.
like, oh, okay, we closed or we at least have pipeline in from this specific activity, um, so that we can
That's
run
where
it
you
back.
need the like, or like, do you guys have a Salesforce technical admin or someone that's like,
No, 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 no,
yeah,
no, no.
that's where you need the technical admin to
It's
like
yeah.
tap into the APIs and
There's so
all that.
much maturity that needs to happen in our data modeling, specifically in Salesforce, that would help marketing to a huge extent, to not only know like the activity or let's say the webinar or the event, but also like the lead scoring aspect of, all right, this person consumed or downloaded, this case study or downloaded this ebook. Um, like that stuff gets fed in piecemealed in other places, but it's not ultimately rolled into this like one high level view of like, all right, like this opportunity is big because they went to this webinar, or, these 5 webinars,
Yeah,
um, demoed or sent up for a demo from this event, and they also downloaded 2 case studies.
yeah.
um, that's not there yet, so
That's not easy to do. Yeah,
no, it's not easy to do at all. It's very very
especially in Salesforce.
complex. I
Yeah,
know, but it's funny because like I've been at organizations where like we've had that, and it's
yeah.
kind of fun to have. But yeah, I mean, if you're working at a
They
smaller
probably had a
organization,
full time
we did
Salesforce admin or had like a
absolutely,
contractor or
and
something. But
even it wasn't easy back then. Like this was at
no,
Flowcast. Um, it wasn't easy back then to kind of put that all together. That
no,
took a long time to really get to a point where where the sales team and marketing team had the information they needed to get out of Salesforce. But it's interesting, to at least be curious about it. So I think like as a marketer, especially if you're at a small company and like and you have these CRMs available to you, whether it's HubSpot, Salesforce,
hmm
um, to be curious because you have to be, because you need to know what's working and what's not working. You got to use the data that's in front of you at the moment to be able to make like really quick decisions, or else you're just going to be kind of kicking the can down the road and waiting for either yourself to do it, like to connect all the dots, which I don't know if that'll happen, um, or just to the point where you're just wasting time trying to figure out the data part of it, to not just
yeah,
like see the data from like the maybe the first party source and just move on from there. Take
Yeah.
the insights and keep keep things moving.
Yeah, totally. And coming at this from the agency side, so like, there's a clear like limit to what we're able to do as an external partner from a pipeline data perspective, CRM perspective. And it's something I'm kind of like been recently beating the drum on is like, let's understand and define what our limitation is, draw a line around it, and say, this is it. Like, we'll get stuck in like data purgatory trying to figure out how to connect all of these sources to contacts and just like you were just saying, like this could be a full-time job for someone, and when you're external there's only so much you can really do. And if we're being judged not on how complete our data can be but on how effective our marketing can be, then let's get the best number we can. All understand that this is not perfect. This isn't like the holy grail of like data that we can connect to these activities, but that this is as close as we can get within reason, and it's going to help us measure, optimize, and do keep on doing better every time we come up to bat. That's an okay place to be. And I think for what you're saying, like there's an element of that in-house as well. So I've always been like, oh man, if only we were in-house, we'd be able to solve this thing. And it's
Yeah.
not really that easy. So
No,
I
no.
totally feel you there.
Yeah, I think like attribution is always the sticking point, right? With marketing, to get it right. I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect model, or at least it lives like in our heads. It's like we know it could be perfect, but it's like how do you actually get that to be the case? But I'm curious though because like from an agency standpoint, um, you're delivering on kind of like the results and the attribution, uh, from like the client service side. And so like
Yeah.
from an in-house perspective, like obviously I'm working with the sales team and I'm reporting this into revenue and the CEO and everything. Like what does that look like on your side when you guys are measuring your results and the work that you guys are doing, especially when it comes to like the B2C side, right? You guys are selling, you guys are working with companies that are just selling like a consumer product at times. Um, what does that look like? How is this, what's the big difference and like how you guys are doing that?
Yeah. I mean, on the B2C side, it's pretty simplistic. So we don't really run into many challenges there. It's really on the
It's
B2C,
like,
B2B
yeah, are
side
they clicking the
where like,
CTA to purchase something or are they not? Right.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of.
We can pull in revenue depending on what the product is or service is. We can tap into CRMs and we can pull that data all back in and push data into it. But B2B is really kind of where we're building our service around, and our offering around, and our processes around. And so what we do as an agency is kind of a little bit of what I was saying is like understand like how confident, like what is the level of confidence that we can get to in the data that we can see, and like let's call that out. Let's be like, this is where we're like 99% sure that like this data is accurate, and then we report on the whole thing. Like what's the ideal report that shows impact of marketing on pipeline, on deal flow. And in our conversations with our clients, with our points of contact, we make it very clear that like we have an X% confidence level in this part of the data here, because this is all dependent on your sales team entering the right data in the right way at the right time. So we're going to report on it and we're going to show you the deficiencies. And you know what? Those reports end up going back up to the C suite. They end up getting talked about at the exec level of like, hey, we have this, $20,000 a month investment in this external marketing agency. Here's the results. Sure, they drove, new MQLs, but they're not able to tell us impact on revenue. Here's what they're telling us, and like it all comes back to sales. So it
Yeah.
ends up producing really productive conversations through that process that actually end up getting people more aligned um, on the sales and marketing side, because you have an external force that has an external dollar investment on it, and it makes it more critical versus being in-house on a small team. You're a fixed dollar expense. Like it's less painful, you know. So when you have an agency, an external partner, it feels more painful when they're calling it out. Hey, here's our progress, but we can only show you this limited amount because your data quality in your CRM is we're not very confident in that it's showing us the right things, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how we deal with it.
Interesting. I mean, I know that presents its own set of challenges, but you can only
Yeah, I
present what
mean,
you can only kind of give what you get, out of each client.
yeah, and honestly, like data is important and reporting on results is important, but like as an external partner, like you are judged on your effort and your impact, right? So like you can't do a damn thing about those numbers if you're not being productive with your time. So like that's why I'm like, as quickly as we can, let's define what we're able to report on with confidence, and let's move on from that. Like let's set up our reporting and then get into execution, because we could waste a lot of time going down the rabbit holes with, you know, weekly consults with the sales team, trying to help them define their lead stages and figuring out like what triggers an MQL to SQL. Like there's just so much that of work that needs to be done there. As an external partner, we still do it when we're contracted for consulting hours for that, but I don't like to take up our marketing execution time like getting distracted by that. I want to get into execution mode. I want to ship. I want to ship. I want to ship, and we'll figure out data over time. You know,
Yeah.
similar to what you're saying. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can't like you want to obsess over the data, but like you can only obsess over what you have like at a given time. You can't just like kind of sit and try to
Yeah, you
figure it out.
use
Yeah.
momentum to drive change, and you can only get momentum by shipping. That's the only way it works.
Yeah, totally.
Cool, man. Well, when you suggested this topic, I was kind of like, oh, I don't really know about this. But honestly, I feel like us, if we really wanted to, could do like an entire podcast, entire series just on pipeline and like dissecting stages and going into like nurture versus acquisition and like all that fun stuff. Um, but so I'm glad we did this. You clearly highlighted the opportunity for marketers as they dive into in-house roles that need to collaborate with sales, the challenges, the upside. For like, I want you to wrap it up for me, like someone, an early stage marketer, just getting into the game, just trying to figure out this power dynamic that exists. What's your kind of like core takeaways? What would you suggest to your early marketer self?
Yeah, I mean, like get it integrated with sales early. I
Yeah.
think I took a little bit too long to do that here, but it's like the roles are ever evolving. The from marketing at Flowcast years ago to marketing at Proffuel now. Um, like I started to see that there's a lot of overlap in the activity that we're doing and the relationship that we can have, and like that there's overlapping activity. Like encourage sales to help you market stuff. It doesn't just have to be this quick little leadless handover and say, okay, have fun.
Yeah.
We can like marketing should be guiding sales into what they should be doing or how they should be talking about things based on the context in which we gather from our marketing activity. um,
So not just sales enablement, sales empowerment.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good way to put it. I mean, enablement's kind of built into that because it's like, well, here's some content, like like I guess like a good example would be
It's
like,
yeah, it's like not just serving it on a silver platter, but like motivating them to use it. You know, getting them excited about like what it could do for them in the right
yeah,
conversations.
because it helps them in their relationship building too. So
Yeah.
if I want sales reps to market an event or something on LinkedIn, here's the image, here's the some sample copy. Would love for you guys to help us promote this because it not only helps us overall as a company, but it helps you build a better relationship, especially if that sales rep's going to be there, or can kind of help kind of push prospects our way at a in-person event, or just kind of push them into a webinar or something like that. So
Yeah.
so there's definitely opportunity for marketing to help guide sales to help on the marketing side. Um, and then not only just thinking about new pipeline, I think like when we think about ongoing conversations between marketing and sales and constant check-ins, it's, hey, not only, not only what did this new event or webinar produce for us, but hey, how about, you know, the last event we did, or, the one a month ago, like where are we stuck somewhere? How can marketing maybe help provide that enablement opportunity to help move sort of warmish pipeline to a deeper stage? Because I always, and I've been a victim of this myself, or I don't want to say victim, but just maybe guilty of this myself, of just only focused on what net new users or customers are we bringing in on a given month, and not thinking about, well, what about the ones that came in last month that are stuck? And is there
Hmm.
anything we can do there, whether it's working with, obviously with sales, but like at Rent Spree, it was our customer success team was kind of our quasi sales team too. Working with that team to kind of help push people further down the pipe. Um, so yeah, I think it's also just like thinking about what's being carried over from previous quarters, previous months, things like that, because those are still deals in the pipeline that, hey, if they close and they came in through a marketing inbound channel, hey, that's a good attribution there.
I mean, there
Um,
could be a deal sitting there in kind of purgatory that is bigger than all of your hottest new leads
yeah.
combined.
Oh, totally.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I think that's a big
there's
opportunity.
gold in there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think with SDRs and salespeople, it's kind of like chasing the bright shiny object. So like these new leads that come in, like, oh, I got to go after them. I got to do this. But
Hmm.
there's opportunity to go back and even look at closed lost opportunities that happened a year ago,
Yeah.
and work with the sales team there and say like, hey, what can we produce for this group of people? Could be a case study, could be something else that's going to help you re-engage. So I think there's re-engagement opportunities um, that marketing can help sales with as well.
Yeah.
This is something that was coming up with PropFuel, and complete credit to our account executive that was leading that charge. But it opened my mind up to, okay, yeah, like how can marketing help support those efforts of like re-engaging closed loss opportunities, and because there's definitely opportunity there too. So yeah, otherwise it's just a kind of exploring like different activities. PropFuel, we're very like webinar event focused, but there's ABM opportunity, there's better content opportunities. um, Partner marketing, I think, is a big thing too, that helps
Yeah.
with
Heard that.
on the sales side, because they're engaging customers or prospects anyways that are have overlapping audiences with other companies that we could do like joint marketing efforts with, and getting a
Yeah.
new set of eyeballs on our product. And there's trust there because maybe they're customers of this other company, and we're doing like a co-marketing or partner marketing opportunity. Now they're getting exposed to our product,
Right.
and
There's that whole like
new customer.
that whole near bound movement. Are you familiar with that?
I mean, I haven't heard that term specifically, but
I
you
think
know,
it's like a way to coin the new inbound marketing for partner marketing, like
gotcha. Yeah,
that same concept. So they're using near bound as the
yeah.
concept. There's a whole group of people on LinkedIn talking about this.
Oh, okay, I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I mean, but those leads are warmer than if you were to
Yeah,
do it yourself. So now it's like
there's a whole
sale.
strategy like
Yeah,
yeah, there's a whole framework and strategy that you a playbook that you can run that isn't even established yet. That like I feel like there's a lot of opportunity if you had someone just focused on partners, there's probably a ton you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, those are kind of my big things. Anything else on your end that you want to add?
No, you covered it all. You covered it all. This is good
Okay,
because like I was saying, as the external partner, like
we could do a
you,
part two.
yeah, no, but yeah, it's the X as an agency, like you don't own the pipeline. That's the thing. Is like
Yeah,
you don't really have ownership over it. You're just playing in someone else's pipeline. So like this was nice getting kind of like the in-house perspective because I can learn a lot from that and how I approach my collaborations with clients. But ultimately, yeah, I don't have a lot of kind of like hard hitting advice for this other than like data is king, integrations make everything happen, and that making sure that marketing data is talking to sales data and vice versa, which we talked about is not the easiest thing to do, but is ultimately like the foundation for making sure that any of this stuff actually is accurate, makes sense, can drive positive and reinforce positive actions on the back end of activities because you know actually what happened on the back end of running this event or this campaign or this ad. um, it all comes back to data, so that's where we try to put a lot of our focus. So yeah, good
yeah.
stuff. We covered the
No,
pipeline. It was great.
yeah, that's great. And I'll just add not only the marketing data speaking to the sales data and back and forth, but it's the marketing people talking to the salespeople and vice versa too, because
Yeah,
that's hugely
good point.
important to have that relationship.
Yeah, yeah, good point. All right, good stuff. That was the pipeline. We have another fun topic coming up. I don't know. We've been doing this every couple of weeks. Hopefully, the cadence sticks up. But we don't know what the next topic is. But we have a whole spreadsheet with a bunch of juicy ideas, and I'm sure we'll pick something nice and fun for us next time. So until then, do good marketing, drink good coffee, and we'll see you then.
Cheers.